All right. Good morning or good evening to everyone. Today I'm super excited because Karen is here with me sharing this lovely space, and she's going to share about her story about recovering her periods, getting her vitality back, and really upgrading her life over the past few months. So for all the people that don't know me, I'm Claudia, nutrition and dietetic clinician and the founder of the Recover from HA support group and the Period Comeback Protocol. And today we have Karen. So welcome, Karen. How are you?
Amazing. I can't complain. It's beautiful today and I'm super excited to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that I had this chance to seeing you again. So for all the women listening, Karen reached out to me. I think that it was approximately March or April this year. Was it only? Yeah, only just a few months ago. Oh my God, so many things have changed over the past few months. And when you reach out, it wasn't only that you didn't have a period, but you were in a stage of your life where you are asking yourself lots of questions, and you are in the brink of a burnout, giving out lots of energy and not getting much energy back from a nutritional standpoint, also from an exercise point of view, and life in general. Work was busy, your living situation wasn't optimal, and you were just giving, and without really pausing and asking the real questions. So can you tell us more about how you lost your period and what happened over the past couple of years in your life?
Absolutely. So in 2021, which was the second lockdown in Australia, I ended up having a situation where I was by myself. And so that lockdown was around 3.5 months. And I think I like the productivity kick in all respects of life. So I kind of just took exercise as a way of distracting myself in that forced solitude, let's call it. And that became just so habitual, and it was like really cathartic. So I think I became slightly obsessed. And then I didn't even realize I was still eating regularly, and I've always been healthy, but I didn't realize I'd lost heaps of weight. And then when the lockdown came to a close, a lot of people, close friends particularly, saw me and were like, oh my God, you've lost like probably 5, if not more kilos. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. And then I think I had just kind of developed such this control over exercise that it just ramped up, because I started going to then a gym since they all opened. So it got more intense, and then kind of restricting food, which I wasn't even really cognizant of. I just started doing, and then it all kind of just became intense. And that was for about 2 years, until I started to, as you say, Claudia, felt like really on the brink of just complete collapse. And I was like, what's wrong with me? And then my sister, we're really close, was trying to gently make me aware that it seemed some of my habits were not necessarily optimal. So I kind of started doing some research, and then I came across, HA, and I was like, I think I do have this. So there we go.
And here you are. So may I ask you, what made you reach out to me? What was the driving factor at that time?
I think, there was a lot online about HA, but I didn't feel like I found a common thread in all the separate narratives. And then I came across 2 separate practitioners, one being you, and I felt like your story was a lot more inclusive. And I particularly found the Facebook page with all the graduation videos so understanding, and just I felt like they were empathetic of everyone's different approach towards HA. And so that kind of was like, okay, for me, that's what I need right now. Like I need some compassion in my life. So I was really excited to just be a part of it.
Yeah, and you really had to learn self-compassion over the past few months, and for all of us, it's still work in progress anyway, and something that I personally have to work on day in and day out, even after a decade of recovering my periods and my vitality. So let's go back to March, April. I cannot remember the starting date. That's so bad. But anyway, it was this year, the beginning of the year. So you decided to join the Period Comeback Protocol. You joined the HA community. What did you work on from the very beginning? What was one of the most important things that actually got you to the place where you are today with natural periods and so on and so forth?
I think my favorite key learning, which a lot of women may not necessarily associate with this journey, was just learning to be vulnerable. Like, I think we instantly go to the kind of tangible output, which is like reduce exercise or be a bit kinder to yourself with it, and, you know, try and bring in breakfast again, reduce caffeine. But I think the conversation that we kept on coming to was kind of this like psychological one, which is if you learn to be courageous through your vulnerability, then this whole journey will be easier. And learning to trust others, because I was like, no, like I can only rely on myself. And so I think like you were so pivotal in me learning to just kind of let go. And I feel so much calmer as a person in all respects of life because of it.
I think that one of the sessions that we had, we just spoke about vulnerability and opening up for like 40 minutes out of the 50-minute session. And then towards the end, we were like, oh yeah, by the way, food and exercise. Shall we discuss that as well? But it was definitely something that was coming up for you. And that's the beauty of when you work with someone on a one-on-one, is that you can actually tweak and change things depending on what you need in that specific moment. Did you find also the group calls helpful in your recovery?
Yeah, massively. I thought they were so valuable, considering that, you know, the one-on-ones will be spaced out. So the group calls give you kind of this middle ground where you need that space between the one-on-ones to have the introspection and like come back and have a richer conversation with you. But I think the group calls give you the content in order to do that. And the women are just so supportive and inspiring, because, you know, everyone's story is so different despite having the same like branding or kind of like, you know, general classification of experience. So I think it's something that everyone should definitely try to get to as much as possible. It's not necessarily always every week that you can go there, but it's also about being kind to yourself, that you don't have to necessarily wake up super early if you're feeling drained or whatever it is.
Absolutely. And I love when you said that women have different stories, even though they happen to have the same conditions, because when we live in our bubble, we think that they are the only ones suffering from the same symptoms, and there is the unicorn syndrome. I'm not going to be able to recover. I'm not going to be able to get better. I have to do it on my own. I cannot invest in my health, and so on and so forth. And but you did it, and the results were incredible. So share with us, how did you find most difficult about the recovery journey?
Definitely like trying to deconstruct the fallacy that people care what I look like. I think, like, you know, at the end of the day, everyone's going to love you for who you are internally. And as much as society doesn't really project that messaging as much as we should, it's very much you know, something that's true at the end of the day. Like, my friends and family don't look at me differently because I've become more curvy. And funnily enough, that's something that I stated was a key objective when we first met. And I remember you asked me, like, do you really think that? And I was like, yes, I do. But I just needed to get to the stage where I was curvy to fully believe that it was beautiful. And, you know, it is quite empowering to be really fit in a different body, which I was like, I'm going to completely lose my fitness, but I haven't. Like, I can still do nearly the same intensity of exercise if I want to now, after a couple periods and with more weight on me. But I actually feel like I'm more energetic. Like, I used to do really long runs and HIIT and everything we discussed. And it was very much like I was clearly fit. I wouldn't like puff at a certain point, but it was like I was just so fatigued. So there was kind of two things my body was doing. It's like I could go further, but also like it seems like a bad idea. Whereas now it's like I can go further and I feel fine.
But that's the biggest fallacy nowadays, because we define fit based on how someone's look. So if you have abs, if you have glutes, then you're fit. But you just pointed out that yes, you could push yourself. You had that kind of very fit body, but then you had no energy. You were in the brink of burnout. You didn't want to do anything else, and you didn't have a period. Obviously, that was completely shut down, and you were actually wondering, where am I going? What am I doing with my life in general? So yeah, it's really, thank you for underlining that, because it's really important for also women to pause for a second and think, what does it mean to be fit? What does it mean to be healthy? It's just me being here on my own, restricting food, exercising at 5 o'clock in the morning when I don't want to? Or is it me allowing myself to sleep when I need to, push myself when I have the energy to do so, and have regular periods? Now, Karen, I know that lots of people, when they enter the recovery journey, they think, oh, it's going to be a straight line. I'm going to start from A and I'm going to get to Z, and it's I'm not going to encounter any issues because I'm part of a program. So that's not going to happen. And I'm definitely going to get my period back within 3 months. How is the reality of recovery?
It's definitely really hard. I would say I'm quite a resilient person, but I was definitely filled with sorrow a lot of days. And I think particularly in that first 6 weeks, you're just constantly grieving. It's like you think you know who you are, and you have this whole identity that's constructed around how you look, when it's really just, maybe 5% of who you are, but you've just put too much weight to it previously. And I think kind of like peeling back that 5% and realizing what's kind of behind it, but has been really pushed down. It's really exciting, but it's also like at times sad, because you don't know, especially I feel like when a lot of women are quite expressive as part of the kind of the feminine being, you don't know necessarily how to express yourself for a time being when you're peeling back rather than necessarily adding directly. And so it's first about stepping back before you add. And I think that's a really confronting experience, but it's rewarding.
And how do you feel about your body at this point in time? I know that is such a broad question, but I really would like to hear from you.
Yeah, I would say like empowered, in the sense that I know I'm in the best body for me. And that's something that I'm proud of, because it's been really hard to get there. I definitely think, and it's quite normal in this day and age, and as a woman in particular, you do question yourself sometimes still. But when you remind yourself why you're here and how much better you feel, even just like when you point out to me, Claudia, that like, oh, you just look so much calmer, like the last few calls. It's so true. I think, I'm not in this constant state of stress because my body is just not constantly being deprived of essential nutrients. And so I know that the body I'm in is optimal. And I also feel like really feminine. Like I love my boobs and I have a big bum. Like when I put on clothes, I used to feel like I would put on clothes and I just look so sticky and like I looked nice, but it wasn't necessarily like wow. Whereas now I can put on clothes and look really almost fashionable. And I found what looks good on me now. I feel like I've found a new kind of approach to dressing up. Yeah.
Fashionable and empowered. Wow. Incredible words. So let's get to the juicy bit. How was getting your first period back?
Oh, I was actually, pleasantly surprised. I really thought that it would take a little bit longer, and everyone's so different with this. So I guess it's also keeping in mind that we can't put too much pressure on ourselves when it's going to come. But I mean, I was super, super happy. I remember I like woke up and I felt wet, and then I went to the bathroom and I checked. But it was also very, very, very light. So I think it's about also managing your expectations. It's not like you're necessarily going to get like a perfectly balanced period when it first comes back. And I think, even the first few, that's something that you shouldn't necessarily expect, and everyone's so different again. So it's just about kind of being open-minded to the process. And I think if you see a bleed, that's already amazing. It doesn't have to be the perfect bleed.
Thank you for that, because that's really important for the women to actually know that, because sometimes there is that expectation. As soon as I get my period, it's going to be abundant, 5 days long, a textbook kind of period. It's going to come every 28 days and ovulation is going to be on day 14, which is really far away from the truth. But something that really shocked me at that time is that you sent me a message and I was kind of in passing. You're like, oh yeah, by the way, I got my period. But there wasn't that type of excitement. And I kept on digging and I'm like, Karen, what's going on here? Like, why can't you just embrace this moment? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I do that quite often with big moments. I'm very much a go-getter. So I think I'm like, oh, well, this isn't it. So like, there's no point celebrating now. Let's just like keep going until we get the gold. Like I felt like I was at bronze.
You had the bronze period. Amazing.
So, like it's probably, no, I wouldn't recommend others to do that, like embrace it. And it's something my sister always says. She's like, Karen, just stop, like just enjoy it. But no, it's something, look, I'm super young as well. So it's something that I'm learning to navigate.
Personally, I normally find myself having to tell women to type it on a message. I got my period back, because there is that denial and that resistance. What does it mean that I got my period back? It's something that I wanted for such a long time and I worked so hard for. What does it mean that now I have it? What's going to happen to me after I got my period back? Because it's kind of the end of the chapter and a starting of a new one, which is a milestone and sometimes can be pretty scary, especially for women also that wants to have children in the future. And they start thinking, oh, wow, now that my reproductive system is functioning, what if I can't get pregnant? What if I don't get the second period? What if the third period is still a bronze? That there is the moment where we travel in time and we start to worry. And it's really important to come back to the present moment and acknowledge that I got my period. I've done an awesome job. That's been incredible. So in the J community, we speak a lot about the non-negotiable. Can you tell us like 2 of your non-negotiable at this point in your life?
Yeah, so if I am thinking about, how much I want to exercise at this stage of having a few periods now, I'm very much of the mindset that, I'll probably do instead of doing cardio every single day, which is what I used to be at, doing it only like 2 or 3 times a week, and just like really enjoying the more strength-based exercises, which you guided me through, and so did Jade. And I think that's a non-negotiable in the sense that I know if I push it anymore, I'll start feeling that kind of chronic stress because I already have other stressful realms in my life. So I don't want exercise to be adding to that. I want it to be a catharsis. And then another one, definitely eating breakfast. Like it's so incredible when you think about how many women do fall down that pathway of just skipping it. It's so common. And I think, and actually men too, I'm not going to make this just gendered. I think you just realize how much better you feel when you even just you can start out small, but just have that bit of chia pudding or like those fats and the carbs and etc. Like you do feel like you can think better and you can articulate yourself. And I wouldn't ever want to fall down the trap of just skipping it and having coffee again.
Well, you're gonna reach out to me before you do that, right?
Yes.
But it's also very important to note that it wasn't easy for you. Like for the first months when you joined the period comeback, you're like, Claudia, if I have breakfast, I'm gonna lose concentration. I'm not gonna be able to give my 100% to my students and my clients. So I don't think that that's gonna fit my lifestyle right now. And hindsight is a beautiful thing. And I wish that I could send this Karen back on time to speak with a younger Karen. So if you look back at the past few months, would you do the period comeback protocol again?
Yeah, definitely. I think it is such a wonderful community and platform. And you've done such an amazing job bringing it all together. And, you care so much about all the women. And it's such a beautiful thing to be in that compassionate space.
Thank you. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna cry because it's something that I tend to do every single live. So I promised myself this morning, no tears today. And well, they're coming, obviously. So one last question. If you could share something to the women that are listening to this video, what would you say to them? Like if they're in that space of being scared of investing, being scared of gaining weight, being scared of making changes, is there anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think that, there's a common narrative that if you travel the world, you'll find yourself. But I think within the mundanity if you take a leap of faith, which is harder than just like jumping on a plane and traveling, I think you're traveling within your own life, and that learning to navigate those different difficulties and relationships that are inextricably tied to your sense of identity is just like the best possible way of achieving, you know, the sense of however you want to define finding yourself without having to go abroad.
You are so wise for your age, Karen. You never cease to amaze me, which is something that I've been telling you from day one. So thank you for sharing this. And yes, changes don't happen in breakthrough, but in micro shift, the little things that you do every single day in the mundanity, exactly what you said. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing this space with me today and with all the lovely ladies. And let's make sure that the next period is going to be a gold one. And let's keep aiming for gold periods. Okay.
Thank you so much, Claudia.
Bye, Karen.